as we all. Again, I'm going to put Gina's email in the chat, even though I know more people will come on. If you are not getting the emails for the Free Friday coaching calls, let's really quickly go over kind of the ground rules. Other than my guest speakers, we don't sell anything. We don't talk about different companies. We're just here to lift each other up in the industry and hopefully bring information that's helpful. We are on the second call of March. I want to pre-announce this. I'm going to be doing a special call about behavior. This call will really go deeply into how your behavior affects your results. And that one, just in case you want to bring relatives or other people outside of the industry on, it'll be a call that anybody could learn from. However, let's focus on today. Eric Kelly and I have been friends for going on 15 years, I think, right, Eric?
Yeah. I was thinking about that this morning. Yeah,
I remember I was the lady I'm currently married to and I broke up, and it was at night, and the next morning, well, we broke up, we'd been fighting, and then I was on the road to the airport to fly to Phoenix to do a class when I was with Keller Williams, and Eric was going to be meeting me at the class at a very nice hotel in Scottsdale. Is it Scottsdale? It's the one you
yeah,
said?
Scottsdale.
Yeah. And we went, I was like still in tears, and I'm trying to put myself together to do an all-day class. And Eric greets me at the front of the hotel, and I walk in and I go, man, I gotta talk to you. And he goes, well, there's no privacy here, because everybody knew I was coming. There was what, a couple hundred people there that day, Eric? I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so we go into
You draw a crowd.
Yeah. Well, we go into this bathroom, and the bathroom has lounge, like big chairs that you would see in a living room, right, Eric? I mean,
yeah.
And we just sit down there in the bathroom, and I start bawling my eyes out and, sort of revealing my soul about, my girlfriend hates me. She just broke up with me. And Eric's doing this, it'll all be all right, Rick. So, of course, here I am married to that girl for 7 years now. I guess it was all right.
You're welcome for that incredible advice, by the way.
That's right. Thank you.
I'm taking no credit for that. So yeah.
And
she is amazing.
Well, I've walked you off some ledges. You've walked me off some ledges. You've always got a really heartfelt story that helps learn a lesson. And I watch Eric's journey all the time, because he is always on a journey. He's always seeking to be a bigger, better version of himself. And it's always impressive to me. And he always honors me with kind words. We see each other at events. At the end of the day, he's making a huge difference in my life and the lives of others just by posting his journey. And folks, there's a lot of goodwill in that. You're making, like Andre just said about him, it's ballsy, right? Well, he's always putting himself out there with vulnerability. And when other people see that, guess what they do? It's the same as the Marianne Williamson poem, right? They see themselves being able to be bigger, better versions of themselves, and to be on a journey, and to be vulnerable, and be okay with the failure that happened along the way. So I'm going to shut up a little bit, introduce you to my buddy, Eric Kelly. He's been, how long have you been selling real estate now? Isn't it 23 years or?
20 years.
Okay.
I pioneered platinum hair. It wasn't this color when I started. So I always tell my kids that you all want platinum hair. I was doing it before it was even cool.
Yeah. Well, Andrew Weir and I both specialized in that. So anyway, all right. Well, I'm going to put myself on mute, and you take it away, buddy. Okay.
Awesome. Well, Rick, thank you for the opportunity. Any time that I get to spend time with you is, it's just, it's a contribution to my life. And so I appreciate the opportunity to share that with everybody. You have had a profound impact on my life. Casey has had a profound impact on my life. And I appreciate just what you do, and especially the heart, because when I think of servant leaders, I certainly think of you and Casey at the top of my list of people that I know that really embody that and live into that. So welcome, everyone. I'm honored to be here with you today. My belief is about our time together today that it will be divinely inspired and that we're going to collaboratively create whatever's supposed to happen today. And so my intention is that I can deliver as much value to you as possible in the time that we're together, and that hopefully there's an idea, an insight, or something that inspires you and moves you in a positive direction. So sound good, everybody? I have a few things I want to talk about that as I just wrote down some thoughts. I'm a kind of a reflective person in the morning. I have a pretty similar ritual from day to day. I've always worked my business kind of in streaks, and the greatest strides that I've made personally and professionally in terms of progress or growth are really sort of orchestrated that way. And so there's a whole variety of different things that we can talk about. And what I want to do is talk about what resonates with you the most. So I have a few things that we can reference to begin, but if you want to type in the chat, if there's something of particular importance to you right now, whether that's mindset, whether that's building momentum in your business, whether that's, striving and moving forward through adversity in your life, maybe it's, something that you really want to accomplish or a personal challenge, anything like that. So if there's something that's specific to you, if you type it in the chat, I know the kind of spaces that Rick creates and the connection that everybody feels. So obviously this is a safe space. If there's something where there is some vulnerability, as Rick talked about, nobody's going to repost it on social media today. So, let's just all agree that we have that environment. Is that good with everybody? Okay. So Rick talked about the journey, and for whatever reason, I have been incredibly fortunate to have some of the most amazing mentors in the world in my life. Like Paul that you had last week, Paul and I have spent some time together and had some incredible conversations, and he's exceptionally talented at what he does, and another heart-centered leader. And so these people just cross my paths, and I'm able to form connection. And one of the greatest compliments that I ever received was from a friend of mine. Her name is Lisa Nichols. Some of you may recognize her name. She's probably one of the most world-renowned transformational coaches. And Lisa and I happened to cross paths about 10 years ago. And Rick talked about the journey. And I'm only sharing this with you because I want it to be a source of encouragement for whatever stage that you're in. Because how many people have been striving for their own greatness, or taking a risk, or pursuing something they were passionate about, and the road was just smooth and level and easy and straight? It was a straight line to get there. How many people have experienced that? Is it ever like that? It's never like that, right? And so when Rick said journey today, the thing that just percolated up for me was what she shared with me one day. And she said, in a room full of people, which was really humbling actually too, but she said, I want to acknowledge you because some days I have seen you run to the work, and some days I have seen you walk to the work, and some days I have seen you crawl to the work, but you keep showing up and doing the work. And what is the work? The work is being the best version of ourselves. The work is taking consistent action towards the thing that we said we want. The work is spending enough time being introspective and going within ourselves to understand, what is it that I really want, and why do I want that? And so what do we believe is the thing that holds us back the most? You guys can type it in the chat, or if you want to unmute real quick or shout out. What's the thing that you believe in your life holds you back more than anything else from progress or achieving a goal or playing at the level that you want to play in life?
Me.
You? Yeah. Yep. I agree. How many people experience fear when they're launching into something new? Show of hands. A lot of people are on the screen. Show of hands. If you're not on the screen, you can raise your hand digitally. So is that fairly unanimous? Just looking at the screen, it seems fairly unanimous that it's fear. And so what my belief is that there's two things that are the counter to fear. One is faith, and the other one is love. And I don't believe it's hope, because hope is sort of speculative. There's a great Jim Carrey kind of a montage of speeches that he's given it. And I watch it about 3 times a week, and I'll share it with Rick if you guys are interested in seeing. It's about 10 minutes long, and it's kind of a good way to start your day with some motivation. But one of the things that Jim says in that video is hope is a beggar. And when I really sat and thought about that, I'm like, you know what, that's kind of true. And there's a difference between hope and faith. So faith is a belief in an unknown outcome. Faith is a belief in ourselves. And then love is something that we carry with us. And it really defines like what our intention is. And are we living into our own truth in that intention? And we get to choose love over fear every single day by the way that we show up. So the love of ourselves is making our own personal health and our wellness a priority in our lives. And that happens on a daily basis. It's in the moments of decision, those choices that we're making in the moments of decision that compound over time that are really going to determine our experience in life. So making our personal health and well-being a priority every single day. Really the love of the people, choosing that are most cherished in our lives and making the time for connection with them and making the space to create experiences that become the most valued memories of our life. And then I think love of our community, and that's coming with a heart of service and contribution, which I'm sure that everybody in this room right now operates their business that way, shows up in the community that way. But it's really creating something that's bigger than ourselves, which translates to a ripple effect. Like we don't know what the impact of one conversation could be. We don't know what the impact of showing up and doing one small act of kindness could be, or making a contribution, or taking a leadership role to help someone in a time of need or support a charity that we care about. So we have a choice, I think, each and every day. And I will preface this by saying a lot of the things that I talk about today are conversations that I've had in the mirror with my greatest adversary, which is kind of consistent, I think, with what most people's response was. And Rick's response was me, and people said yourself, and fear of failure always in my head. Those are the comments that I'm reading over in the chat. And so all these dialogues have really originated from like my own journey, as Rick talked about. And so we have that one of the big fears that I think most people share is a fear of failure. And failure could be shaped as criticism. Failure could be shaped as, looking bad, like disappointing ourselves, disappointing others, all these different dimensions of failure. But if we really get clear on our definition of failure and make our peace with it, all failure is an outcome that was different than our expectations. That's all failure is. I put a target up there. I wanted to be here by this time. I wanted to close this many sales. I wanted to grow my business to this revenue. I wanted to weigh this much. I wanted to be in this place in terms of my income or my wealth or whatever it is. And we set these targets that we impose on ourselves, and then we beat ourselves up when we don't hit the target. And so then we start to reflect failure back as I'm less than, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, all the negative emotions. And my belief about negative emotions is that's like running your car at 6,000 RPMs instead of 2,000 RPMs. One of the things, I have a number of friends that own Teslas, and one of the things that's a cool feature of that automobile is while you're driving, it's recharging. And so I think positive emotions, when we're around positive people, positive environments, and even when we're on our own doing positive things, that's a regenerating energy. Whereas when we're in negative environments or negative thought patterns, that is an accelerated drain on our energy. So I think staying in the positive place and making micro commitments where we're honoring ourselves, we're honoring our word to ourselves, I believe is the greatest way to build self-confidence and to elevate our self-esteem. Cheryl said, for me, fear of failure is disguised as fear of success. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think fear of success is really powerful too, because we're then moving to a place that is unknown for us. Right? Taking any risk, endeavoring anything that's new, it is stepping forward in faith towards an unknown outcome. And so if we reframe our relationship with failure and what that means and look at it as a positive learning experience, Has anybody ever gone bowling with small kids? Anybody ever done that? And so when they first start out bowling, what do they usually do on the lanes? Do they let them throw a lot of gutter balls? Yeah, they put the bumper rails up, don't they? And so the ball goes down the lane and it bumps off this side and it bumps off that side and it bumps off this side and off that side. And eventually it gets all the way down the lane and it knocks over some pins, right? And to me, that's all failure is. Failure is the bumper rails that are guiding us on our path. And if we're going too far in this direction, we may believe it. We may be inspired to go in that direction. But if that's not the direction we have to go, that's the bumper rail. That's what failure is. It's redirecting us in the direction that we're supposed to go. Is that resonating with anybody? Type in your thoughts, feedback.
Eric,
Yeah,
I
go
love
ahead.
your micro commitments. I thought that was brilliant.
Thank you very much. I learned that from a man named John Cheplack. One of his other phrases that really resonates with me is tiny hinges swing big doors. And I'll talk about that in relation to my personal journey. A lot of people experienced a lot of negative things around the world during the COVID season, like when COVID started. And I was in a place of transition in my life. And I just felt this really strong inspiration to not be consumed by that, to be a positive force, both for myself and everybody around me. And that was really what my intention was. And my buddy Nick had been encouraging me for a while to do a 30-day challenge, which is something that he uses as a growth tool on a consistent basis. And he'd done it in many different dimensions in his life. And when I say encouraging me, I mean like months and months and months of, dude, just do one of these challenges, just commit to it, just do it. It'll change your life. And so finally, I listened. And so I made a decision early on in that process. This would have been about April of 2020. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make a commitment. I'm going to do a 30-day challenge. I was really not happy with the way that I looked, the way that I felt, like how my body looked. I was concerned about my just general health and well-being as as we all age, right? The accumulated things that we're not doing to serve ourselves start to have a really much more dramatic impact. So I just made this intention. And so my 3 commitments, because I like to keep it simple too, and I like to keep it trackable. For me, accountability is visual. So I've got to have some visual accountability. So I bought a magnetic calendar, white calendar, stuck it on my fridge, kind of cheesy, and had some colored markers. And I wrote down my 3 intentions and kind of wrote down what my vision was. And I started putting the dates in. And my 3 commitments were, at that time, I was following a keto diet because I wanted to recalibrate my blood sugar and just do some different things. And I needed to lose some weight to be healthy. And so that's what I did at that time was keto diet, do something physical for my body every day, which about 6 days a week was movement, some kind of exercise, strength training, walking, biking, something pretty physical. Sometimes on the 7th day on Sunday, rest and recovery is also important. And that's true mentally, not just physically, especially in a profession like this. How many people got into the real estate industry because of the flexible schedule? It's so flexible, isn't it? It's so awesome. You can work at 10:30 on a weeknight. You can work all day Saturday and Sunday. It's the most flexible job ever. It's freaking awesome. But we can go and go and go and go and until we can't go anymore, or we get burned out, or we just are really dragging. And we're doing some serious damage to ourselves if we're not making that health a priority, like we talked about at the beginning. And so anyway, that was movement. On Sundays, if I needed rest, what I would do is extended period of stretching. I would get a massage. I'd do different things like that, still physically to nurture my body. But that was my routine. And then the third one was I stopped drinking alcohol. And when I go in on something like that, like if I'm going to do a nutrition plan or do a challenge or something like that, I don't have cheat days. I don't have I'll just have a little bit days. Like I'm a all in. If I made these three commitments, this is what we're going to do. So anyway, I did the 30-day challenge. And what's cool, and I think you guys all know this, if you're all in the real estate industry, one of the interesting things about our industry is the failure rate is really high. In my opinion on why the failure rate's really high is because most people never get to momentum in the industry. And so as real estate salespeople, for me, as soon as people come in, they have to get into consistent action, because if they get into action, then they're able to move to traction. Now, I know every market is different. And for those of you in the Bay Area, you can probably make a good living on 2 or 3 or 4 sales a year. I'm just kind of teasing, but that might be a little bit true. And but my definition of traction is you're closing about 12 transactions a year. And the reason I define it that way is because across most markets, if you're closing 12 transactions a year, you're economically viable enough to stay in business, to stay in the business, right? When you get to momentum, I think that's 20 to 24 transactions a year. At that point, what you're doing is you're staying in the business, and now you're making enough surplus money that you can increase your savings. You can get rid of any other debt. You can buy an investment property. You can put more into marketing. Like, you can start to grow like a business and not just having a self-employed job. And then past momentum is acceleration. And that's where you can go to all different levels of the business. So is that making sense to everybody? Okay. So the same thing is true when we're in the personal growth journey. So the first step is to get to consistent action, and you have to take consistent action. So for me, what that looked like, I was going to grab a picture this morning just so I could show you guys and put it up there. But for me, what that looked like was putting 30 check marks in a row on that calendar. They were orange. I had an orange marker. That was my check mark every day. And so I did the first 30 days, and I was feeling so much better, consistent action, that I had gotten to traction, right? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep going. And so long story short, I did that for 264 straight days. I made an intentional choice to stop because it was Christmas Eve and we were having a big family dinner. And I decided, you know what? I want to have a toast with everybody tonight and have a glass of wine at dinner. And I'm going to give myself some grace over the holidays. In just under 9 months, I dropped 84 pounds of excess weight. But the most important part of that journey was the belief in myself and the confidence and the mindset and the way that there was a ripple effect that it inspired other people. And that was not my intention. Rick talked about me, posting things and sharing the journey on, social media and things like that, which I like to do. But part of that for me is my own accountability. And I'm not attached to how many likes or shares or any of that stuff that I get. I'm just trying to put out my heart. And if that helps someone else as a byproduct of that, that's awesome. And I also want to be a role model for positive things. I've certainly on my journey been a role model for less than positive things at different seasons. And so my focus now is like, what are the ways I'm going to show up and be a role model for positive things? So any thoughts or feedback on that? Is this resonating with you guys? Is this helping?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm taking a lot more notes than I do when I'm speaking.
When what?
When I'm speaking.
It's hard to take notes when you're speaking.
I know, but this is really good stuff. And I've lost it a couple of times I've had to turn the camera off a couple of times because you're talking about stuff that directly hurts in a good way. So thank you.
Man, you're welcome. You certainly have stirred my soul as well. And these kind of conversations do. I mean, I think that we're in such a tech-driven world now and such an age of distraction that there is such a void of human connection for so many people. And that has always been at the core of my business. I run a relationship referral-based real estate practice. I've done that for 20 years. And to me, that's the most meaningful because I never looked at this as a transactional business. In fact, my ultimate goal would be that it's a transformational business for the people that we get to partner with and for the clients that we serve. And when I talk about how we nurture relationships and what I've learned over the course of my career, which is not I don't think there's any right way to do anything. I'm just saying this is the way that it worked for me because it was more natural to me. It was where I felt maybe my strengths were. And it was an enjoyable way for me to interact with, the real estate business. But when I speak about the relationship piece, one of the things I always share is I've had way more business flow to me over 2 decades as a result of things I've done outside of real estate to build relationships with people. I've supported their charity. We've gone on hikes together and shared common interests. I've coached their kids. I've been the first guy at the door when their mom or dad passed away in that moment and shown up. When most people feel really awkward about doing that, I just don't care. I'm just there for them. I just show up. And I mean, I care. That's why I show up, but I don't care about the awkwardness or being uncomfortable. And that's probably, something that we should talk about a little bit today. I went out this morning. I was a little behind my pace for physical activity this week and where I wanted to be. And I wasn't making some of the progress that I wanted to make. So I was like, well, I'm just going to double down on what I would do. And some days are longer because there's more space in our calendars, right? My morning routine is very structured, but the amount of time that I have to go work out or hike, or, some days are, 2-hour hikes. Other days are like, I have 22 minutes to do laps around my block and get my steps in and meet my minimum commitment. And so that's just the reality of life, especially in the business that we're in. And so this morning, I went out, it was 44 degrees in Phoenix. And I went out just before sunrise. I'm kind of a big sunrise guy. If anybody, is not aware of that about me, I've seen a lot of them. And I feel like it's such an inspirational time. It's like a time of renewal. You realize, hey, I've been gifted this new day. And my responsibility with the gift is to be present.
Eric, how many in a row did you do at one point?
I did 365 sunrises in a row. I watched every sunrise in 2014. I saw every single one in 13 different states on the shores of Lake Michigan, on both coasts, both oceans. Yeah, it was an incredible experience. And I posted that. And I mean, I have a cool story about that. If we have time, we'll talk about that too. But I posted that not for recognition, but here's what was really interesting. People would approach me when I would see them in public places or community events or different things like that. And they would talk about the sunrises. And I would realize I don't really recognize them. I mean, this was a long time ago. I was a little more conscious of likes and shares and stuff back then, right? Because that's what I thought I didn't start it with that, but I was trying to build relationships. And so I was paying attention to who was interacting so that I could acknowledge them back. That was really the purpose behind it. I didn't start it to build a following, but people would come up to me and they would always say stuff about it and be intrigued and have a question or say something about it. And I'd realize these people have never commented once. I've been posting an inspirational quote and a little silhouette selfie and a couple pictures of wherever I was in the world that day. I've been doing this for months and months and months, and never have I seen them interact on one of my posts, but they're watching. They're watching. And that led me to I'm just going to share this really quick, Rick, in case anybody hasn't heard it before, but that led me to a discovery of what I call as the law of unconscious influence. And the way I discovered this was there's a young man used to work in my same office here in Arizona. And he left the office, he went to visit his sister in San Diego. And he decided he loved it out there so much that he was just going to move to the beach. He was going to get a job and figure it out. So he literally lives a block off the ocean in Mission Beach. And so he called me in January of 2015. Okay, so now the whole year's gone by. I've been posting my stuff for an entire year. He calls me in January 2015. Eric, this is Colin. Hey, man, we haven't talked in a little bit. I want to let you know I went through this major transformation in my life. I was like, oh, good for you, Colin. That's awesome, man. Tell me more about that. Well, I lost 106 pounds and I ran my first marathon. And what prompted him to do that was he had an appointment with the doctor and his blood pressure was crazy and he was drinking and smoking and bad health habits and all that kind of stuff. And he was in his early 30s. And so what do you suppose happened when that version of Colin, the 300-pound version of Colin that had that lifestyle, started telling his friends, I'm going to run a marathon before the end of the year? What do you think happened?
They told him he couldn't do it.
Any guesses?
His friends ran marathons?
No, his friends were not marathon runners. Of course not, because that's not the tribe you hang out with when you're doing that, right?
Yeah.
So the vast majority of them said, I don't believe you. You're never going to do it. You're not a runner. They did. Yeah, they discouraged him, Amber. Yeah, Gilbert, they didn't believe him. And it's really weird when you look at that. You're like, these are the people that are closest to us. And they're not even like fanning the flames of our fire in our moment of inspiration. So long story short, he decided he was going to do this. His first mile on the beach, 28 minutes and 47 seconds for the first mile. 28 minutes, 47 seconds. He calls me in January 2015. He says, hey, man, here's the transformation I went through. And he goes, I want to let you know, you have no idea that this was going on. But some of those quotes you posted last year, they pierced my heart. They went right through me. And I told myself every day I was too tired or I wasn't motivated or my body was hurting and I didn't want to do my workout. I told myself, if Eric can get up and watch the sunrise today, I can get my workout in. And he said, you have no idea the impact that that had. And the truth is, I did not have any idea. So to the importance of us being vulnerable and being authentic and putting out there and leading with our heart and making contributions to other people, that's the importance of it. It's not the response we get in the moment. It's the ripple effect. I want to share another story that I just heard from a man named Coach Burt. Some of you guys may know him. He does some coaching and has written a book called Person of Interest. And I've heard him speak a few times. And he shared this story the other day. And he talked about a teacher that believed in him when he was 6 years old. Think about that. He was 6 years old. And he didn't have the perfect home life. He didn't have a set of ideal circumstances, but this teacher bonded with him. And she said, you know, Michael, I see something in you. I think you're a leader and I think you're intended to be a coach. He went on to be a championship high school basketball coach and now is affecting, you know, tens, hundreds of thousands of lives as a speaker in the work that he does. And the catalyst to that path, like what if she had not said that and instilled that belief in him when he was 6 years old? How different would his life be? And more importantly, all the people that he communicates with, inspires, motivates, teaches in this day and age, how would their lives be affected? So that's what I think is the critical importance of us putting ourselves out there. So let me talk about one more thing, and then you want to open it up to questions, Rick, and feedback, and I'm happy to share anything that I can that would be a resource or helpful to people.
Perfect.
I think it is natural for us to have seasons of complacency. I think it's ingrained in our society that you have to work hard and you have to hustle and you have to grind, and that's how you build. And I do think that there's some moments of that. But I think if we're doing work that really feeds our soul, and if we're coming from a heart-centered place, that becomes more energizing. It doesn't feel like a grind. Now there's grind moments. I'm going to tell you this morning, I started on that conversation. I went out to watch sunrise. And I wore a short sleeve shirt and I put a hoodie on. It was 44 degrees. I did take gloves because I'm a little bit soft. I'm a desert dweller. But it was 44 degrees and I was cold. I mean, cold, not like a little chilly. I mean, I was cold when I started. The sun wasn't up yet. And I did it on purpose because I want to push myself to continually step into environments that are uncomfortable. And when I got back, I decided that I was going to double down. Remember before I mentioned I was a little bit behind on my physical activity, like where I wanted to be and where I was tracking for this week. So I'd already made a commitment in my mind that I wanted to jump on the Peloton and get a quick ride in on the Peloton. But the coffee was already brewed and it was warm and it smelled good. And I was cold because I just came in from being outside walking in 44 degrees. I was a little warmer because the sun came up, which was nice. But I was like, no, I made this commitment to myself. And so the deal that I'm making in my mind is I'm going to ride the Peloton, then I'm going to have coffee. And so while I'm on the Peloton, I'm finishing that up. I'm like, one of the other commitments I made is taking a cold shower 5 days a week, starting with a cold shower, 3 minutes. I actually set a timer so I don't cheat. Do you know how long 3 minutes is in a cold shower? I mean, you feel like you watched a feature-length movie. You're like, when is that timer going to go off? Good Lord. And so then I got off the Peloton, I'm all hot and sweaty. And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go get a cup of coffee. I don't feel like taking a cold shower. Maybe I'll take a cold shower tomorrow. You know, the greatest hindrance to progress in our life? Tomorrow. So then I revised my deal with myself, which was first I'm going to take a cold shower, then I'm going to have the coffee. See the micro commitments that are accumulating today, right? And so that's how you build momentum. I hope all this is making sense because it's a little bit of a stream of consciousness conversation today. Complacency is what we were talking about. And so what happens is when we're in the grind and everything is hard and we're not looking at the fulfillment. Like I was so uplifted today before I went out the door because I'd already kept 3 commitments to myself. I'd already started my day in the right way. I'd already written down my priorities for the day. I'd already done a meditation. So these things that I'm doing to serve myself, to try and put myself in the best place and keep the promises to myself, a bunch of those were already checked off the list. Think of the difference in momentum that you bring into the day when you start your day that way. And it doesn't have to be 3 hours. Some days I have about 40 or 45 minutes to fit everything in that I can. Some days I do have the luxury of 2 hours. Personally, I try to never schedule real estate appointments before 10 a.m. So you guys are my first appointment today. It's 10 o'clock in Phoenix when we started. And the reason is I want that personal time. And if there's something that's urgent, obviously, I mean, we all know how our business works and you kind of fit it in, but I like having that time blocked in the morning to make sure that I'm taking care of me first. And so what happens is if instead of the fulfillment mode and recognizing the reward and acknowledging ourselves, if we're just like in grind, and everything's hard and it's because we're trying to just push, then we get burned out. We get tired out. It goes back to that negative energy, positive energy. So the stuff we have to, Andy said, hard to keep the gas on the pedal on the floor all day, every day. After a big flurry of activity, you find yourself backing off, but then your future business is hurt. That's exactly right. And that's, you articulated that probably better than I am, is that you can't run it at that high level all the time, every hour of the day. So that's why I said at the beginning, I work in streaks. I like to work in streaks. We've got to build in some of that rest and recovery time. And if we're dominating the first part of the day with the things that are most important to us, then by afternoon, most of my afternoons are kind of free form. I don't have a ton of structure to my afternoons, but my mornings are disciplined. And that includes the things for my business. One of the things I wrote down when I was thinking about just having this conversation today was when you run and you get to burnout, or you run and you achieve a result, but you're not doing it in a sustainable way, that's when we move into complacency. And complacency is a box that we're fitting into because of society, some form of expectations on us, maybe from other people. or the choices that we've made that have created in our lives. I mean, that's what's driving choosing fear over love, in my opinion. And so we have to look inward and evaluate our own lives and do it authentically and honestly, and just, sit with the truth. We don't have to judge it. We just need to be an observer of it and say, is this in alignment with what I really want? And if it's not, how can I create it? Okay. What are your thoughts on that? Any questions? Anything specific you'd like to talk more about? Yes, sir.
So obviously there's people on here from all walks of life with all kinds of experiences. And I'm willing to bet that every single person on here has been touched or resonated with at least one thing that you said.
Thank you.
One of the things that I think of often is there was a period of my life, and I know there was a period of your life, where no matter how hard you thought you were working, it was one failure after another, sometimes for days, weeks, months, and even years, where you just felt like you'd get your head and nose just above the water so you could breathe. And then it was like somebody pushed your head back down under the water again. And I know that's something that also everybody, you can't be in a business that is 1,000% dependent on you and not have that happen. Right? Can you elaborate? Because I know it's happened for you. We've shared it. Eric's, I don't have a lot of male friends. Eric is one of my closest male friends in the world. So I want you to, just kind of, if you could, touch on some of the times where you just had to keep persisting because otherwise you were going to drown.
Well, it's helpful if you can learn to breathe underwater. That'd be the first tip I would get. Unfortunately, with our human physiology, that we were not equipped with gills. So, so I think we have to learn to adapt. And I think that it's really important to focus on what we can control and be dedicated to that. And it's important to pause and acknowledge ourselves for that and celebrate the wins. And we can do that with little things. When I started out early in life, when I was about 25 years old, I left the East Coast. I got a job in Denver, Colorado. I didn't know a soul. There was a home building boom out there, and I got a construction job. And all I knew is I needed to make a change in my life. And I barely made it from week to week financially. But one of the things that I would do is every Sunday I would walk over to the mall and I would get a slice of cheese pizza and a Diet Coke. And that was my acknowledgement of self. Like, that was my little victory. That was like my little treat. And I would do that like every single Sunday. And it sounds kind of silly, but I knew exactly how much money that costs. And I knew that I could make that work and I could still eat and get through the week in the beginning. And so the thing that has really impressed me, I mentioned before how incredibly blessed I've been to have some just truly amazing mentors in life. And one of the things that's been so valuable to me, I mean, I've learned unbelievable amounts of things from people. And you guys have spent time around Rick. He's definitely an influencer like that too. And I think a lot of that, the reason that you resonate, Rick, with people so deeply is because you are so vulnerable and you are so authentic. And so as I look across this amazing array of mentors that have influenced me, there is a common theme in every single one of their stories, which is, this was one of my darkest moments. I wasn't sure I could hold on another day. I wasn't sure how I was going to dig my way out of this hole. I just kept working and working and working, and nothing seemed to be going right. And I've heard that from every single one of them. And so, you know, there's an expression, and we've probably all heard some different version of them about, you know, don't compare your chapter 2 to somebody else's chapter 12. You know, the advantage of people that are further down the path from us, or maybe more experienced. Does everybody know the definition of experience, by the way?
No.
Or no, good judgment. That's what I want to talk about. Because we look at people and we're like, oh man, that person did that really well, or look at them, they're having all this success, right? Whether it's investing or what you're doing in your business or how you handle conversations, we could all categorize that in some form or fashion as good judgment or skill set. Good judgment is a result of experience. Experience is a result of bad judgment, right? Mastery of scripts and dialogues is a result of experience. Experience is a result of failing over and over and over again at mastering scripts and dialogues. Like, you know, taking a leap of faith and putting your first video or your 10th or your 100th or starting a YouTube channel for whatever it is that you're passionate about. It may or may not be real estate, but putting that out there and being vulnerable and speaking from your heart, the people that are really good at it have experience. And the reason they have experience is because they were really bad at it for a while and they were okay with it. That's why I made a video on the toilet, which it has not been shown publicly yet, but I am going to use it in a presentation because I'm like, who freaking cares? Like, I did it on purpose. It's not graphic, just, but I did it on purpose. My hair was all messed up, hadn't brushed my teeth.
You can just see the mirror and the sink in the background.
Yeah. Yeah. Cheryl said little wins, micro commitments. So what I focus on in that time, so to finish the story about the 264 days, I ended up with 6 calendars on my fridge. The entire front of the fridge was covered with these magnetic calendars. And they had check marks on it, but I wasn't going to take them down until I was done and said, okay, I'm complete with this. And now I'm going to move on to the next thing. And so keeping those micro commitments, and that's what we can control in the darkest of times. We can control what we choose to focus on. We can control what our attitude is. We can control the amount of energy that we give to it. We can control our gratitude. I've had some unbelievable hardships in my life in the last year. I've lost 5 people that were close to me. Ranging from in their 70s, but still unexpected, to 3 friends that I lost in their 50s. And a young lady that was pretty much like a daughter to me that passed away at 22. I also had a neurological event. It's called a TIA. I was sitting on a Zoom like this just over a year ago. The left side of my face started to go numb. My ears were a little clogged. I thought, you know what? I'm run down. I've been running too hard for too long. I have a cold. So I thought, I'm going to go lay down. I'm going to go home and lay down. I started texting to cancel my afternoon appointments and my lunch. I got my car. I live about 15 minutes from my office. I got on the freeway. As I'm going on the freeway ramp, my whole left arm starts to tingle in my fingers. So by the time I get to the exit that I would take from my house, my entire left leg was numb too. And it's about 3 miles from the exit ramp on the freeway to where I live. And about almost exactly halfway is one of those standalone emergency rooms. And so here I am at the freeway exit. I'm numb from here to my toes on my left side. I'm turning onto the road, and the conversation in my head was, this is probably nothing. I don't have time for this. Can you imagine? This is the stuff that we do right in our heads. And so as I'm driving, I get to about the 3rd stoplight, which is a block or so from the ER. And I just am like, you know what? Something is definitely wrong. So I turn into the ER. I walk in. Here's the beautiful thing about being a man in your 50s. You want an ER hack? If you walk in an ER and you say, my entire left side is numb, they don't ask for your insurance card. You don't fill out any registration paperwork. They come out and greet you. They take you. So anyway, thankfully, everything turned out fine. Just, you know, obviously I'm here. So thankful for that. And, you know, but it was an experience. 4 days later, one of my best friends died in his kitchen of a massive heart attack. He was 58 years old. And that has inspired in me what I would call the fierce urgency of now, because none of us know how long we have, and none of us know what's going to change tomorrow. What we have is the promise of today and what we can do to be a positive influence in today. And that doesn't mean that you have to be a social media sensation. It doesn't mean you have to be the biggest business in the industry. But if you're following your passion and you're leading with kindness, I mean, sometimes it could just be telling somebody that they look really nice today, or holding the door for them and smiling. You know, you don't know what kind of difference that's going to make. And I think the last thing that I would say on that, because this for me personally has been such an emotional year, it's our responsibility to keep going even when it's hard, because that's the energy we can bring to the people around us. And it's important that we sit with the emotions. But what I've learned, especially over the last few years, is if you're in a place of struggle, which how many people have ever grown in any significant way without feeling struggle or failure or adversity or resistance or pain? I was originally calling the bike the Painaton. And then I thought, no, I don't want to keep planting that seed. I'm going to call it the Peloton. So, but it's not easy in the beginning. It's hard. It's freaking hard. So just make your peace with it. But on the emotional stuff or the adversity, or when you feel like you're failing, or when you're just spent, we have to learn to pause and sit with those emotions. They are real human emotions. It does not serve us or anyone around us if we start to suppress them or mask them or do anything other than sit with them and experience them. I've had some really good shower sobs this year. I've cried at red lights. I've cried on phone calls with people. I've cried on Zooms. Rick and I share that common trait. We're good criers. So sit and feel the emotion, but don't let it become all consuming. Put a time limit on it. I remember hearing Christopher and Dana Reeves speak. And one of the things that she said was after his accident, when he was now quadriplegic, he went into a deep bout of depression. And she said, I went to him and said, hey, we have to work through this. And so we're going to put a boundary up around what you're feeling. And so I'm going to give you 10 minutes a day to feel sorry for yourself. And after that, it's time for us to move forward. And that's how they navigated that. And look how many lives that man touched, you know, during the rest of his lifetime, speaking and inspiring and doing things like that. So anyway, with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Jiha, and thank you. And I'm honored to be here, and I appreciate the time with everyone today.
Dude, I'm sure we're going to get a ton of requests for you to come back. This is your third year in a row talking, and every time we get just great messages about you. And thank you for, number one, your vulnerability and your honesty and your ability to relate a story. Man, it was literally like story time. I really wanted to suck my thumb, have a blanket, and have some cookies and milk, but I just stayed present and didn't do that. But thank you. Guys, Eric, it's very easy to find. He's E-R-I-K, Eric Kelly, and he's a real estate agent in Ahwatukee, Arizona. And look him up, follow him on Facebook. He's just a regular guy. And I love that he said over and over again, you don't have to be the top agent. You don't have to be the top social media influencer. Just do you, okay? Because he's doing Eric extremely well. Love you guys. And I'll see you on the first Friday of March. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. My pleasure. Peace.